The rain fell harder than it should have that night, thick, endless, and cruel, washing down neon streets that glowed like bleeding memories. At 11:43 p.m., the city froze. A black car stopped beneath the last flicker of a street lamp, and inside it, Yu Menglong sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on the phone screen that showed a single unread message, "Are you still alive?" He didn't answer. He didn't move. Somewhere in the distance, thunder cracked like a gunshot, and for the first time in years, he smiled. What no one knew was that this smile wasn't goodbye, it was rebirth. Within the next 48 hours, Yu Menglong would vanish, leaving behind a ticket under another name, a new script, and a shadow that refused to die. He'd been planning it for months, perhaps years, weaving escape lines between roles and rehearsals, dropping coded phrases in interviews no one bothered to interpret. Fame had become a cell, applause, a sound that hurt. He wanted air, real air. He wanted to die without dying. So he built a door, quietly, patiently, in plain sight. When the news of his death broke, the world wept. Fans trended his name, colleagues posted tributes, and yet in an old district of Shanghai, rent for an apartment was still being paid by a man called Lin Haojuan. Inside that apartment waited a typewriter, a coffee mug half-stained with red lipstick, and a framed photograph of a woman whose face no one could trace. On the back of the photo, 4 words were carved with trembling precision, "If time forgives me." The police dismissed it as sentimental clutter. But to those who knew Yu Menglong best, it was a signature, his final scene written in code. What followed blurred truth and rumor. Some swore they saw him at an airport days before his funeral, dressed in beige, a black hat pulled low. Others claimed a cafe in Prague had a regular who looked just like him, always at the same table, typing under the name Lin Haojuan. When asked if he was an actor, he would only answer, "I used to be someone else." Then he'd smile, the same faint, unreadable smile that once melted cameras. The story deepened when young Mei received a letter with no sender's name, handwriting slanted, elegant, painfully familiar. It said, "If I ever return, don't call me by my name. The world buried him before I could. Tell them I'm finally home." The letter arrived 2 months after his burial. No one could explain it. The stamp was foreign, the ink still fresh. Whispers began to rise. Had he really died, or had he simply changed the script? His diary, later leaked to a small circle of insiders, revealed lines that read like confessions. "I've played too many men who aren't me. Maybe my next role should be myself." In another entry, he wrote, "The soul is not afraid of dying. It fears being forgotten while still alive." Every discovery painted a new version of him, the actor, the wanderer, the ghost. His manager admitted that 3 days before the tragedy, Yu Menglong cancelled a commercial deal worth millions, saying only, "I've earned enough for someone I no longer want to be." Even his final drama held clues. In a scene he improvised, his last words on camera were, "Sometimes, you must die once to remember how to live." No one caught the omen. Months turned to years, and yet his presence refused to fade. Social media sleuths decoded his posts, finding hidden initials, LHJ, repeated like a whisper across captions and notes. Lin Haojuan lives free. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the actor had always rehearsed his resurrection. They say in Prague, a song circulates among street musicians titled, "Before the Curtain Fell." Its author is unknown, but the handwriting on the sheet music matches Yu Menglong's old lyric drafts. And in Kyoto, a bookstore owner claims a quiet stranger still visits nightly, buys old Chinese poetry, and leaves behind folded paper cranes, each with a single phrase inside, "The second life continues." No one can prove anything. No one can stop believing either. He became a story that refuses to end, a performance still running without its audience. Perhaps that was his masterpiece, to vanish so completely that only mystery could play his role. Some nights, when the wind hits the windows just right, fans say they hear his voice echoing through the static of his last interview. "If I'm gone, remember me by the life I was about to live." And maybe that's all he ever wanted, to live a life untouched by cameras, unnamed by fame, unchained from applause. To start over as Lin Haojuan, the man who finally found peace in being no one. Because sometimes the curtain doesn't close, it simply opens onto another stage, one hidden beyond the reach of lights. And in that endless silence, Yu Menglong still breathes, no longer chasing the world, but walking freely within the second life he built before the curtain ever fell. Years later, when the world had moved on to new scandals and shinier faces, someone uploaded a 37-second video to a forgotten fan forum. No title. No tags. Just a still frame, grainy, color-drained, filmed in what looked like a train station. The man in the video wore a beige coat and a black hat. He turned slightly, looked straight into the camera, and smiled. Then he whispered a single line before the footage cut to black. "Tell them the scene isn't over." The post vanished within minutes. But by then, the screenshot had spread. His eyes, those unmistakable eyes, sparked a wildfire online. Was it old footage? A hoax? Or had Yu Menglong, the man buried with a nation's tears, just spoken again? Behind the scenes, young Mei broke her silence for the first time in years. She appeared on a late-night talk show, trembling slightly under the soft lights, her voice calm but uncertain. "He once told me," she said, "that the world doesn't need to know where you are to feel you're still alive." The host pressed her. Had she seen him since? Mei hesitated, then looked straight into the camera. "I can't answer that," she said, "because some things stop being secrets the moment you speak them." That single interview reignited everything, the theories, the doubts, the hope. Not long after, a document surfaced, a forgotten property deed in Seoul, purchased under the name Hao Linjun. The signature, once verified, matched Menglong's exactly. The date of purchase: 2 days before his reported death. The house was never lived in, but the walls bore faint marks, film notes, camera angles, and a quote scrawled across the living room mirror. "Reincarnation is just a role you play better the second time." People began connecting the dots across his work. In The Silent Feud, his monologue about living a lie so perfect it becomes truth. In The Double Casting, where his character is replaced by his own reflection. In The Apology That Never Came, his chilling line, "I left long before I disappeared." Were these merely scripts, or had he been leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, scene by scene, for those willing to look? Then came the night of the broadcast. During a Film Awards tribute, as the screen played clips of his old performances, a live camera accidentally caught a reflection in the mirrored backdrop, a tall figure standing at the edge of the auditorium. The resemblance was uncanny. The camera panned back instantly, but for a fraction of a second, millions swore they saw him, alive, watching. That moment divided the world. Some called it illusion. Others, revelation. But to those who believed, it was confirmation. Yu Menglong had never died, he had simply stepped out of frame. In the following months, strange things began happening. Anonymous donations appeared in his name to film schools across Asia, funding short films under the collective title The Curtain Project. Each script centered on themes of rebirth, memory, and anonymity. One story was about a man who fakes his death to teach others how to tell stories without showing their faces. Another about an artist who paints portraits of strangers she's never met, only to realize they're all the same man. Critics called it genius. Fans called it haunting. But those who knew him, the quiet few who once shared his orbit, recognized the handwriting in the notes attached to the donations. It was his. Always signed with a single initial, L. By now, the legend had grown beyond control. He was no longer a man, but a myth, a cinematic ghost. And yet, in the heart of it all, something far more human pulsed beneath the layers of fantasy. One evening, a filmmaker from Hong Kong received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph of Yu Menglong sitting by a riverside, aged, serene, almost unrecognizable, his gaze distant but alive. On the back of the photo was a line that felt like an echo through time. "You can only be remembered when you finally stop trying to exist." The filmmaker, trembling, never showed it publicly. He said it didn't feel like evidence. It felt like farewell. And yet, fate had one last twist to stage. 2 years later, a short film surfaced at an underground film festival in Lisbon, Portugal. The director was credited as Hao Lin. The film was titled Before the Curtain Fell. It told the story of a man who stages his death to live in the shadows, haunted by his former self, until one day he meets a woman who recognizes him, not by his face, but by the way he hums before he speaks. Halfway through the film, the camera lingers on the protagonist's hands, long, delicate, unmistakable. The audience gasped. The movement, the tone, the silence, it was him. Every gesture carried Yu Menglong's soul. When the credits rolled, no one could leave their seat. The final line appeared in white over black. The story was never about dying. It was about becoming free. And then the name appeared at the bottom, written and directed by Lin Haojuan. 4 years after, no one ever found the director. The festival claimed the contact information was false. But the voice in the film, the soft whisper that recited the closing narration, was undeniably his. It was as if the universe had agreed to his illusion, to keep his secret alive, to honor his second life. The myth became movement. Fans worldwide began holding curtain nights, screenings of his old works followed by candle vigils where they left letters addressed to Lin Haojuan. People didn't mourn him anymore. They celebrated the idea that somewhere he was watching quietly, content in his anonymity. Maybe that was his real dream, to live without being seen, to feel without being defined, to exist without being consumed. The last confirmed trace of him came from a postcard mailed from Bali. The handwriting was the same, the ink smudged as if touched by sea air. It read, "The show ended long ago, but the light never did." No signature. Just a red stamp in the shape of a curtain. And so the story ends, if it ever truly ends at all. The man who died once so he could live again, the actor who rewrote the boundaries between truth and illusion, remains both lost and found, both gone and eternal. Yu Menglong did not vanish, he evolved. He left behind fame and found freedom, trading applause for silence and identity for peace. Somewhere out there, perhaps under a new sky, a man still wakes before dawn, brews his tea, and writes his words to the rhythm of the rain. He no longer needs the world to remember his name, because in every whispered rumor, every blurred reflection, and every dream that carries his face, the second life continues. The city never slept, but that night it seemed to whisper instead of roar. Cameras flashed somewhere in the distance, too far to reach him now. Yu Menglong stood by the window of his high-rise apartment, rain tracing ghostly trails across the glass. In the reflection, the skyline looked like a stage backdrop, beautiful, artificial, hollow. He raised his phone once more, scrolling through unread messages, scripts, endorsements, invitations, all echoing the same word, more. More fame. More shows. More of him. But he had already decided there would be less. A paper ticket lay on his desk, edges curling from the humidity. Shanghai, Prague. Departure in 72 hours. The name printed on it, Lin Haojuan. His new beginning disguised as a stranger. He ran his fingers over the name as if it were a wound. Somewhere inside, the boy who once sang on empty stages smiled quietly, grateful that at last someone had written him out of the story. At 2:13 a.m., he turned on the tape recorder he used for rehearsing lines. The reel clicked, hissed, and caught his breath. Then his voice, soft, almost detached, filled the room. "This isn't suicide," he said. "It's editing." He stopped, rewound, recorded again. "If anyone listens to this, understand, I only wanted silence long enough to hear my own thoughts." He placed the recorder in the drawer beside a photograph of his parents, both long gone, and an unfinished script titled The Man Who Vanished Twice. Page 1 read, Scene 1, an actor learns he's playing himself in a movie no one agreed to make. The next morning he walked the old alleys of Shanghai wearing a gray hoodie and glasses, no makeup, no mask of celebrity. He watched vendors set up stalls, listened to the clatter of bamboo steamers and the hiss of soy milk on iron pans. No one recognized him. For the first time in years, he felt invisible, and it felt divine. In a small bookstore tucked between a tailor shop and a tea house, he met the landlord who would later rent the hidden apartment. A polite old man with trembling hands handed him the key and asked if he'd be living alone. Yu Menglong smiled faintly. "Alone," he said, "but not lonely." He spent 3 nights there before his disappearance. The apartment smelled of dust and ink. He bought a second-hand typewriter and set it on a wooden table beside the window. Each keystroke sounded like rain against a tin roof. He wrote letters to no one paragraphs that began with "Dear Time" and ended with "Forgive me." On the 3rd night, he wrote the line that would later be found framed on the back of that mysterious photograph, "If time forgives me." He didn't plan to be poetic. He simply couldn't find another way to confess. That same week, his assistant noticed changes, odd, quiet ones. He stopped answering calls from producers. He cancelled a luxury brand shoot. He told the driver to sell his car. When asked why, he said, "I'm trying to see how light feels without glass between it and me." In the evenings he met with one old friend, an unnamed cinematographer who would later claim he filmed Yu Menglong's farewell scene. They met on a rooftop drenched in moonlight. The camera rolled without a script. Menglong stood before the lens, wind cutting through his coat, and said only, "This is what freedom looks like." Then he laughed, not the rehearsed laugh of interviews, but the fragile human laugh of a man about to vanish. The footage was never released. The cinematographer swore he deleted it. But rumor says the clip resurfaced in fragments, used as reference in a later independent film that no one could trace. The final night came quietly. He arrived at his secret apartment carrying only a backpack, the typewriter, and a single candle. He lit it, placed it on the floor, and sat cross-legged beside it. The flickering flame carved shadows across his face, dividing him into two versions, the star the world loved and the man the world never met. He opened his journal one last time and wrote, "Tonight I rehearse Disappearance. Tomorrow I perform it." Outside, thunder cracked, shaking dust from the ceiling. The rain beat against the window, relentless, like applause refusing to fade. He took one last look at the city, its towers gleaming, its people dreaming, and whispered, "You can keep the lights." Then he turned off his phone, removed the SIM card, and placed it beside the candle. The wax dripped like time dissolving. At 3:04 a.m., the lights in the apartment went out. By dawn, his assistant had already begun calling. The producers panicked when he missed the morning rehearsal. The manager filed a report. But Yu Menglong had erased himself too carefully. No digital trail, no cab receipts, no CCTV footage. Just the quiet hum of an empty apartment and a cup of tea gone cold. When police finally entered, they found the photograph, the woman with the unreadable eyes, and the 4 words carved into its back. They found the typewriter with one unfinished page still in the roller. The last sentence stopped mid-word, "Freedom begins when." That was all. The rain had stopped by then, leaving the city slick and shining, as if mourning him in silence. But the apartment smelled faintly of jasmine, the same scent his mother once wore, the one he used to say reminded him of beginnings. Some say a taxi driver saw him near the river before sunrise, carrying a small suitcase and humming softly. Others believe he boarded the first train out of the city. But the truth dissolved with the rain. All that remained were the echoes, the empty seat on the plane to Prague, the unused toothbrush in the bathroom, the tape recorder in the drawer whispering his final rehearsal. "This isn't suicide," his recorded voice murmured once more. "It's editing." The world called it tragedy. He called it the second draft of his life. And somewhere beyond the horizon, under a different name, perhaps he began it, scene one of the story he always meant to tell.